In a quiet laboratory at the University of California, Berkeley, during the early 1920s, a curious observation halted a routine experiment. Herbert Evans and Catherine Bishop were studying rat nutrition when they noticed something was wrong. Their female rats, fed a purified diet, could conceive but could not carry their pregnancies to term. The embryos would simply wither and die. Something vital was missing from their food. The researchers began a meticulous search, adding different food extracts back into the rats' sterile meals. They finally found the answer in lettuce and wheat germ. A mysterious, fat-soluble substance in these plants acted as a fertility factor. In 1922, Evans named this essential compound vitamin E, the next letter in the nutritional alphabet after the recently discovered vitamins A, B, C, and D. The quest then turned to isolating the pure compound. For over a decade, chemists worked to separate this elusive nutrient from its oily plant sources. The breakthrough came in 1936. In a lab smelling of grain and solvent, researchers finally coaxed the pure golden oil from wheat germ. They named it tocopherol, from the Greek words for childbirth and to bear. A vitamin was born, its future uses and dangers still unimaginable. The pure tocopherol isolated from wheat germ oil was just the beginning. By the mid-20th century, chemists had mastered its synthesis, transforming a laboratory curiosity into an industrial commodity. Factories began churning out vitamin E by the ton, its reputation as an antioxidant and skin-nourishing agent fueling a booming market in health supplements and beauty creams. To stabilize the vitamin for these products, scientists created an acetate ester. This modified form, vitamin E acetate, was a clear, viscous oil that resisted spoilage. It slid smoothly into lotion bottles and gel capsules, deemed perfectly inert for rubbing on the body or swallowing. For decades, it sat on pharmacy shelves, a model of benign chemistry. No one questioned its safety profile because no one imagined its next destination. The compound's very stability, its refusal to break down easily, and its thick, honey-like texture were physical properties waiting for a new application. In a different context, those same traits would cease to be virtues and become a lethal design. The story of vitamin E acetate took a sharp turn as the 21st century unfolded. In states where cannabis was legalized, a new market for concentrated THC oil exploded. This viscous golden liquid was expensive to produce, creating a powerful incentive for those looking to stretch their supply. The stage was set for a dangerous substitution. By the late 2010s, in hidden workshops and garages, illicit manufacturers faced a problem. Pure THC oil had a specific, thick consistency. To dilute it with cheaper liquids and still pass visual inspection, they needed a substance that mimicked that honey-like texture. Their search for the perfect cutting agent led them back to a familiar, oily compound. They found their answer on the shelves of supplement and cosmetic suppliers, vitamin E acetate. It was inexpensive, readily available, and perfectly matched the color and viscosity of premium cannabis oil. To a distributor filling cartridges, it blended seamlessly, appearing to be pure product. For the user, there was no visible difference in the liquid they were about to vaporize and inhale. As the demand for THC vape cartridges surged, illicit manufacturers faced a persistent problem: how to stretch their expensive cannabis oil. In dimly lit workshops from California to New York, they experimented with various thickeners. Then, around 2018, someone discovered a golden, viscous oil that matched the color and consistency of pure THC extract perfectly, and it cost pennies compared to the real thing. That oil was vitamin E acetate, a compound synthesized decades earlier for skin creams and supplements. Its molecular structure made it stable and non-reactive at room temperature. Workers in these underground labs would heat the vitamin E acetate, watching it thin just enough to mix seamlessly with the cannabis concentrate before being drawn into thousands of counterfeit cartridges. The deception was nearly flawless. To a consumer, the cartridge looked authentic. The oil inside had the familiar amber hue and thick, honey-like flow. No one handling these products in back rooms or selling them online suspected that this common cosmetic ingredient would behave differently when superheated and inhaled deep into human lungs. The thick, golden oil that had flowed so profitably into cartridges now pooled with devastating effect inside human lungs. In Wisconsin and Illinois that spring, emergency rooms received their first cases. Young adults stumbled through the doors, their breaths coming in shallow, desperate gasps. Nurses noted the bluish tint to their lips, a classic sign their blood was starving for oxygen. Doctors rushed them to imaging. The chest X-rays told a horrifying, silent story where healthy lung tissue should appear as dark, air-filled spaces. These scans showed vast, opaque white clouds. The inflammation was so widespread it resembled a severe chemical burn. Physicians intubated patient after patient, placing them on mechanical ventilators to force air into lungs that could no longer expand on their own. Behind the glass of isolation rooms, teams of infectious disease specialists ran exhaustive tests. Every known pathogen, influenza, bacterial pneumonia, came back negative. This was no ordinary infection. The damage was too rapid, too uniform. A new, unknown syndrome was unfolding in real time, and the medical community had no name for it, no treatment protocol, and no idea what was causing it. As the number of gasping patients swelled into the hundreds that summer, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention mobilized its Epidemic Intelligence Service. Teams of disease detectives fanned out across hospital wards, their questions sharpening with each interview. They pressed the young patients, now struggling on ventilators, about every detail of what they had inhaled in the weeks before collapsing. A pattern snapped into focus. Nearly every patient described using THC vape cartridges purchased not from licensed dispensaries, but from friends, dealers, or pop-up shops. The investigators followed this thread into the shadows of the black market, collecting samples of the sleek branded cartridges that had promised a safe high. In secure laboratories, chemists cracked open the seized cartridges and analyzed their golden oil. Gas chromatographs and mass spectrometers hummed, separating the molecular components. The readouts revealed an unexpected signature, a compound that didn't belong: vitamin E acetate. The same oily substance found in skin creams was now the common ingredient in a national outbreak. The lab results from those seized cartridges now demanded an explanation. In sterile toxicology facilities, researchers began testing the suspect oil. They heated vitamin E acetate in devices identical to the vape pens recovered from patients. The compound didn't just vaporize. It atomized into a fine, persistent mist of microscopic oil droplets, each one a potential threat to the fragile architecture of the human lung. Under the microscope, the mechanism of destruction became horrifyingly clear. When inhaled, that warm aerosol cooled and condensed inside the deepest branches of the bronchial tree. The oily droplets settled like a viscous film over the alveoli, the delicate balloon-like sacs where oxygen crosses into the bloodstream. This was not a toxin that poisoned cells. It was a physical barrier that smothered them. The lungs, designed to exchange gases, had no way to process or absorb this foreign lipid. Immune cells rushed to the site, triggering massive inflammation. The oil persisted, leading to a rapid, cascading failure of respiratory function. Clinicians, grappling with the flood of cases, now had a name for the syndrome: EVALI, a direct injury caused by an oil the body could not clear. As the toxicology reports confirmed the culprit, public health agencies shifted from investigation to urgent action. In late 2019, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention issued stark nationwide warnings. They advised the public, particularly young adults, to avoid all THC-containing vaping products, especially those obtained from informal sources like friends, dealers, or unlicensed online sellers. The warnings were a signal for state authorities to move. In New York, investigators tracked the supply chain from hospitalized patients back to shadowy distributors. Armed with warrants, teams raided unregulated dispensaries and storage units, their gloved hands pulling open cardboard boxes to reveal thousands of sleek counterfeit cartridges, each one a potential time bomb for the lungs. Similar scenes unfolded in Massachusetts and other states as law enforcement seized barrels of the viscous golden cutting oil itself. The coordinated crackdown aimed to choke the supply at its source, pulling tainted products off the streets even as emergency rooms continued to admit new patients struggling for breath, their cases now bearing an official name, EVALI. As the new year of 2020 arrived, the frantic pace of hospital admissions finally began to slow. The public warnings had rippled through communities, and the coordinated raids on suppliers had choked the supply of tainted cartridges. Emergency rooms that had been flooded with gasping young adults now saw a trickle of new cases, the first sign that the tide might be turning. In laboratories, scientists now held the definitive proof. They analyzed lung fluid samples, known as bronchoalveolar lavage, taken from dozens of EVALI patients. Under their instruments, they found the same oily residue that had been identified in the seized cartridges. The golden droplets of vitamin E acetate were present in every single sample from the sick, but were completely absent from the lungs of healthy individuals. This direct match closed the epidemiological loop. The outbreak, which had sent thousands to the hospital, was formally and conclusively linked to the inhalation of aerosolized vitamin E acetate. The crisis had a name, a cause, and finally, a peak. The frantic search for an answer was over, replaced by the grim accounting of the damage done. The final toll was staggering. By the time the outbreak subsided, more than 2,800 people had been hospitalized across America, their lungs scarred by a substance once deemed harmless. 68 families buried loved ones, most in their teens or 20s, who had sought nothing more than a recreational high from what they believed was a simple cannabis cartridge. The crisis etched a brutal principle into modern toxicology. Vitamin E acetate, perfectly safe when swallowed in a capsule or smoothed onto skin, transformed into a lethal agent inside the delicate architecture of the human lung. Its oily persistence there triggered a violent immune response, a chemical pneumonia that the body could not fight or expel. In the aftermath, federal agencies tightened oversight of vaping products, yet no nationwide ban was placed on vitamin E acetate itself. The compound remained legal for its original uses, a quiet testament to context being everything in poison. The lasting legacy was not a new law, but a profound shift in public awareness, a visceral understanding that the route of exposure dictates the dose, and the dose makes the poison.